Hi there everybody, it's Jason here. It's day 122 on my Digging for Antigua project. It's Sunday. It's, what time is it? It's just coming up for 20 to 5, so I've been working in the garden all day. It's about a month since the last video I shot, so quite a lot's happened in the garden. I've moved things around, I've planted different things, I've harvested things and replanted things in their place. So let's kind of have a quick look at what's been going on. Starting with a view from the balcony, it's a little bit difficult to see from this normal vantage point what's going on in the left hand side of the garden, because this passion fruit has grown so much. We've even started training it onto the balcony. So I'll just give you a little overview so you can compare it to the previous video. The cucumbers are still going strong, although they're dying off a little bit. You can see there in the distance the melons are growing up that back fence or the front fence. And then there's the running spinach and everything else. Moving around the other side of the pillow to have a look at the pumpkin patch. You can see that there, and this is my table. All these seedlings have been planted since the last video, in the last month or so. I have down here a squash in a plant pot. I've started to pot things out a lot more and grow things in pots. A little close-up of this squash that's growing out of a pot. I had some seedlings that have been in tiny little pots for a long time, and I thought I'll just plant one of them out into a regular pot, just a regular, something like a 12-inch pot, and you can see it's going really well. And there's even a little squash down there. Look at a few seedlings. These are carrots, beets and lettuce, which have been there for about 5 weeks. Some of these you can see there's some gaps in the trays where I've planted things out. Here there's some arugula and broccoli, which were planted, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Some of them have been planted earlier today. And then looking at these ones, these guys here are lemon and orange, which were grown from pips from fruit. This is kale, which I think is a different variety than what I've been growing for the last couple of months. Some of that's gone in the ground. Here we have some celeries, some peppers there that I got from Giles, my friend, and some pigeon pea. These peppers I think are red spicy peppers. Here we have a tray of seedlings. From the left, that's pole beans, romaine lettuce, mint marigolds, mizuna, tarragon, sorrel. That's European sorrel, not the stuff we grow out here in Antigua, make Christmas drinks out of. It's not that at all. And purple basil and Thai basil, so looking forward to those. The mint is still growing really nicely in the pot just outside the entrance to the grow zone. You can see the pumpkins and sweet potatoes are bursting out. A little bit of detail in there. You can see there's mainly sweet potatoes in the middle now. The squash that were in there are finished, the butternuts, so I've dug those up and I planted something else in there today. But you can see the pumpkins are going crazy. And I have had a problem, as if you remember watching my other videos, with lots of male flowers and not very many female flowers, but I think we're over that. Let's just have a look. You can see this open area here. There were all leaves in these areas, and this area now in the middle of the picture was where the butternut squash were. I rooted them out. A lot of these plants, the leaves died back close to where the stem goes into the ground, but they still have pretty healthy leaf growth all over the place. And in fact, so much so that yesterday I noticed this, which is my first pumpkin. So it's pretty big already, and I've tied it up with some string in here. I don't know if you can see it behind those leaves, but there's a string which is supporting the weight of that pumpkin. I didn't really intend to grow them vertically, but I have had, as I said before, some real trouble getting female flowers. I really haven't seen any female flowers, and still haven't. I mean, that must have been a female flower that pumpkin's attached to. See a nice big thick stem on it there. So these pumpkins have been in the ground 3 months, something like that, and so that pumpkin's probably been going for a good few days before I noticed it. So that's good news anyway, at least I've got one. So I don't have any squash seedlings to plant in this area where there were 3 squash plants. So what I've done is I've planted something else. The ones on the outside, the 4 corners, are broccoli, and the ones in the middle are arugula. So I don't know quite how well broccoli's going to grow out here. It tends to need fairly chilly. It's a late season crop in Europe, so we'll see. I think people do grow it here, so I'm looking forward to it. I think it takes some time to grow, and so I've put 4 broccolis in and a couple of arugulas. The arugulas hopefully will produce leaves and salad in the short term. There's my pumpkin in amongst all those leaves over there, just going across the pumpkin patch. You still see lots of healthy growth. I hope there's some sweet potatoes growing under all those leaves. And then this is the rest of the main part of the garden. This is the fence immediately next to the herbs. That's the passion fruit. And then this is my, I think that's 2 basil plants. they're growing pretty great. I've been harvesting these herbs now continuously for what, a couple of months, something like that. So that's the basil, that's the oregano, that mat on the ground, rosemary, thyme around the back there. These are some garlic, cloves that I've just planted in the ground that we got from the supermarket. They're growing kind of nicely. More thyme, parsley, dill. Again, we've been harvesting all these herbs more or less continuously. This is some onions. These onions have taken an enormous amount of time to get to this stage. I think some of these were planted in seed trays as long ago as like March. This is the Greek salad bed. Now the lettuce that was in there has been finished quite a long time ago. Well, still really not very much fruit from the cherry tomatoes, but as you can see, there's some fruit there. There's some green peppers and some peppers that are going red in amongst all that. This is the next bed over from the Greek salad. This is obviously kale. Again, we've been continuously cropping that. We've had kale salad almost every night for, I don't know, five weeks, maybe even 6 weeks. It just keeps growing. We just take a few leaves off each plant every day and it just keeps going. And next to it is some other peppers, various different varieties. I forget what they are offhand. There's a little red one down there. That's a jalapeno. And the third pepper bed down, you can see there is some yellow bell peppers, gobi, and next to those are some cherry peppers which have started to go red. You see how much fruit there is on these plants. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to pickle those. I think they're actually pretty spicy, these peppers. We buy cherry peppers in jars all the time and they're never really spicy at all, but these ones are pretty hot. Next to that is a jalapeno with some green and red jalapenos on it, and then next to that some radishes. You can see they're growing quite nicely. We've been, again, continuously cropping those. I keep planting a few seeds and cropping the radishes as they grow big enough. And in the bottom corner is my sweet corn patch. Now you can see the sweet corns, if you've been paying attention, look a lot smaller than they did in the last video. That's because those finished, and these are the second planting. So these have only been in, I think the originals, it was only 2 months ago or something that I planted the first lot. So these are the second crop going in. It wasn't fantastically successful, the first crop. I think we had problems with pollination. I think I've learned a few things now, and I'm going to try and hand pollinate all these this time. Hopefully these ones all grow full height. Remember, some of the others didn't grow full height. They only grow, 1 or 2 feet instead of 3, 5, 4, 5 feet. In here you can also see I've planted some more lettuces which I grew from seed, and there's a couple of beets in there as well. And you can see the squash that they're planted in between the corns. They kind of almost died, these two plants, as the corns reached maturity. And then when I took the corns out, they got a second life. And so now you can see a huge amount of foliage on these plants. And in fact, there's fruits, there's squash, there's a butternut there, and there's one on the other plant which is growing up the fence. So that's still going. Next to the zucchini, we've got a couple of cabbages, some beans, they're poking up above the cabbages. Then in this next area here at the front, we've got beets, little seedlings, and then 2 types of peas, regular peas and sugar snap or mange 2 peas. Then some more beans, a different variety, more cabbages, got okra, and then tomato and various other things up there. You can see here up on the top, this is my cantaloupes. Now, the cantaloupes have really started to go well. As they got higher and higher, they started producing more and more fruit. So you can see here a couple of cantaloupes. There's one there. That's quite a big one. That's as big as my hand. Not that I have particularly big hands. And there's another one there which Kirsty macrameed a net to hold the weight of that one. And this plant is growing all along the top of this fence. There's another fruit under there. It's just doing really well. There's more fruit there in the distance, you can see. So we've probably got half a dozen, maybe 7 decent sized cantaloupes growing on these plants now. Middle of that long thin row, we've now got some arugula growing there in the center, and these other spindly plants are celeries, and then that's one of the squash there. Then the tomatoes, regular tomatoes, not cherry tomatoes, and in here we've got some different variety of arugula that I planted from seed, and then another tomato here with regular tomato, and you can see it's going quite tall, and it's producing lots of flowers, and it is producing a reasonable amount of fruit. These are the 2 remaining watermelon plants. There's no fruit on them at the moment, but they've started to produce flowers again, and I did some hand pollination yesterday. In fact, there's a little fruit there. Can you see it? Just there. Now, I hand pollinated that fruit yesterday, so hopefully that will grow into something. I have had 2 watermelons, so they grew further up this vine here, and I don't know if you remember in the last video there was one here, this big one here in this area split. I think it was a lot of the heavy rain that we'd had. If you overwater them, they can build up such a pressure inside the fruit that they actually just split open. But it was still absolutely delicious, although only the size of a cantaloupe. Just a very quick shot of from the other end of the garden of all the plants. You can see how lush and green it is. I had a look at my earlier videos. 122 days ago there was nothing. In fact, the first plantings were day 35. So this is all 3 months from nothing to this. So all these fruits and all these plants, none of them are a lot older than 3 months. Here we can see the sweet potatoes growing in the dug area. The dogs seem to have left them alone. You can see they're doing really, really well. Hope there's lots of potatoes growing underneath that area. See my papayas looking pretty healthy, and you can see the lettuces in my new vertical lettuce growing structure seem to be pretty good. Some are doing better than others. You can see this one at the top here. I think this is my hand, so you can see there's a substantial amount of leaves. And finally, the other thing that I've done in the last month or so since the last video is start to plant out a lot of the spare seedlings I have into pots, in regular pots and also waste plastic pots. You can see a selection there. These are all different kinds of peppers. So peppers will produce fruit even in fairly small plants like this. You see these peppers here growing inside. This one is a banana pepper of some sort, and then these ones here, these are cherry peppers. And I've also started to plant out other things in plastic pot bottles, and I'm hanging them on the fence with little bits of wire. So these are, I think they're peppers and cherry tomatoes, and this one has got more fruit on it than all my 5 cherry tomatoes that have been in the garden for the last 2 months. Aubergine plants in pots. Now, I'm not sure if these pots are big enough. Similarly, not sure if these pots are big enough for these okra, because in the garden the okra has a stem that's about 1.5 inches diameter. So these plants get pretty hefty and they produce a lot of okra. So I'm not quite sure if I've got enough soil in there, but we will see. It's all a bit of fun. So hopefully everybody else is doing a bit of gardening. Enjoy it as much as I am, and you'll be a happy chappy. So keep digging, everybody. Keep enjoying it. See you later.